thought I would do something a little bit different today. I went into Waterstones last week and I was looking around and I thought there are so many books out there. How do you know which ones to choose? You kind of wander around and you pick things up, and it's the books that catch your eye that you're picking up. So I thought what I would do is I would take photos of some books that caught my eye and then actually see if they were the kind of books that I would want to read. I found there were a lot of books in Waterstones in the new book section that were a bit bland, and I would have just walked straight past them. There is a lot that look fairly similar, and I'm sure there is a reason for that, but I've got 7 books here that did grab me attention. So I'll go through them. I'll put the picture on here of the cover and I'll explain what drew me attention to it. And then we'll have a look on Waterstone's website and I'll have a look at the synopsis and see what they're about and actually see if once it's grabbed me attention, is it a book that I actually want to read? I'm going to put my glasses on because I'll be reading off the screen. So the first book that I saw was actually on a table just inside the door. So it was obviously a book they were trying to promote. And it's this book, and it's called The Expanded Earth by Mikey Please. I've never heard of it. I've never heard of the book. I've never heard of the author. So what drew us to this was it was right in front of us as I went in the door. So I was obviously going to notice it, but I liked the orange on it. The orange kind of grabbed me attention on the border of the book, and the actual picture itself with the water on it and the flowers and the title, The Expanded Earth, the text stood out on the black background that it's on. So yeah, that's the reason that book grabbed me attention. So let's just have a look what it says about it. And it says it's the first installment of Please's masterful fantasy following the travails of shrunken humans on an epic journey to meet their god. Sounds interesting. So let's just have a little bit read further. One sunny Sunday, without warning, humankind is reduced to the height of a handspan, an unsightly transformation as potentially fatal as it is inconvenient. Now, I did see a film a few years ago with Matt Damon in. I can't remember what it was called, but that was about humans choosing to be shrunk down to live in a smaller world. So is it going to be similar to that? On a remote coastal path, Giles awakens in his new body to discover a world reshaped and magnified into a place of astounding abundance and deadly peril. Desperate to reconnect with his loved ones, he seeks the help of fellow survivors, and together they embark on a quest across the altered landscape. But as their journey unfolds, the more the question persists: are they still truly human, or has their reduction in size marked the beginning of a descent into savagery, an evolution into something other? That sounds interesting so far. This is not the normal kind of book that I would pick up, but it does sound quite interesting. So reading on, elsewhere 1 week earlier, Professor Elizabeth Goodwin makes a monumental discovery. God is alive and physically among us, but not in the form we've been taught to expect. As Goodwin prepares to make first contact with the omnipresent ocean-spanning creature, forces conspire in the wings, and the spectre of imminent catastrophe inches closer and closer still. It said it's dark, witty, and wildly ambitious. So yeah, this is definitely not a book I would have chosen to read, but having looked at the cover and having read the blurb, I would read that. I'm going to put that on my list of books that I want to read maybe in the next year. You can let me know in the comments below if you would have picked any of these books up, and if having picked them up, would you have bought them once you'd read the blurb? So the next one I came across is this one, and it's called The Vipers by Katy Hayes. Again, I've never heard of the book. I've never heard of the author. I like this book. I like the colour. I'm drawn to blue. Blue was probably my favourite colour. So the colours on this book, again, it is the colours I think I'm drawn to on books. I liked the picture of the snake. and I just liked the way the title, The Vipers, sounded and stood out. So let's see what that's about. It says, an irresistible island set murder mystery. So I like murder mysteries, so that's a good start. On glittering Capri, anything can be a mirage, and one thing is true, no one holds a grudge like family. The world was shocked by playwright Sarah Lingate's death 30 years ago at an opulent whitewashed villa on the island of Capri. Absolved of the crime, the Lingate family maintains that what happened that night was a tragic accident, and every July they return to Capri to prove it's true. Now, I'm not sure if this is a sequel. I have a feeling it might be. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments. This time, Helen Lingate, sole heir to the family fortune, has a plan. Tightly controlled by her father, she enlists the help of the family assistant Lorna Silver to free herself from her family's stranglehold on her life. And yet, behind closed doors, the legendary Lingate family unity is at breaking point. Upon arrival at the villa in Capri, an anonymous gift awaits them, the necklace Sarah was wearing the night she died. In the aftermath, the paranoid insular Lingates begin to unravel. It doesn't grab us, let's be honest, it doesn't grab us. Maybe if it's a sequel, then that could be why it's not grabbing us, because it's something that happened before. The blurb just doesn't jump out to us. As the investigation into her mother's death is reopened, Helen begins to lose trust in everyone around her. Her controlling father Richard, drug-addled Aunt Naomi, aloof Uncle Marcus, and even Lorna, whose past she realises is frustratingly opaque. And as the family fractures, the long-hidden truth about that night and the secrets they've kept from one another boil to the surface, and they might not leave the island alive. So that got a little bit more interesting in that last paragraph. So I'd put it as a maybe. I don't know if that is something that I would want to read. I do like murder mysteries, but yeah, I'm not sure. The next one, what grabbed me on this picture, Under a Pink Sky, is that pink blossom tree. I mean, absolutely stunning. It's stunning picture. Loved the colours. It just drew us to it. I'd never heard of it, never heard of Esther Ghey either, if that's how you pronounce the name. Apologies. So, reading the blurb, intensely powerful and urgently necessary, Esther Ghey's moving memory both celebrates the life of her daughter Brianna and explores the grieving process and online dangers that contributed to Brianna's tragic murder. I think this is a non-fiction book. I think this was in the non-fiction section. So the words that say grieving process, kind of a little bit. Do I really want to read something that's about the grieving process in a tragic murder that is a true story? So let's read on and we'll have a look. Now, it's not quite written very well on this website page. A mother's true story for live, loss, the power of forgiveness, and the fight to protect our children's futures in the digital age. On the 11th of February 2023, 16-year-old Brianna Ghey left home to meet her friend in a park local to her home in Warrington, Cheshire. I'm guessing this is a true story, and my apologies if I'm pronouncing this name wrong. Her mother Esther was relieved to see her go, a positive step after a difficult and increasingly isolated few years. What Esther didn't know that day was that Brianna was being lured to the park where she would be tragically murdered. There was at once an international outpouring of anguish and outrage for a young life brutally snatched away and a mother's worst nightmare come true. That is a very powerful first part of the blurb, and it does make us actually want to read the book. I have a daughter myself, she is 33, and I think this would be a book that would draw me in. Amidst global displays of support, the usually shy and private Esther began to reflect on how she could channel her own personal grief into campaigning to help others and to create a lasting legacy for her child. So definitely a book worth reading. This is the story of Brianna's death, but it is also the story of her life and a mother who had to find a way to survive without her. It is a story of transforming unimaginable tragedy into change of the power of empathy and a call for understanding and unity in the face of the threats our young people face in an increasingly unchecked digital world. This is Esther's fight for a safer, more hopeful future. Definitely a book that I will want to put on my list of books to read this year. Let me know in the comments below if you've read that book. It sounds like a very worthwhile book to read. The next book, definitely very much more light-hearted. The Cat Who Saved the Library. Now this picture drew me in because it's got a cat on it and I have a ginger cat. So that grabbed me straight away. It drew me to it. And it's also got the words library in it. So books and cats, definitely a mix. It's by the author Sosuke Natsukawa, who I've never heard of, but sounds like a Japanese author, and definitely something I've been into recently. Reading further on the blurb, it says it's an eagerly awaited follow-up to The Cat Who Saved Books. So it's a follow-up, so now I'm thinking, do I need to have read the first book before I read this one? I always find that, and I think maybe when they put new books on the shelf in Waterstones, maybe put them in a section, new books, sequels, follow-ups, things like that. So you know that if you don't know what the book's about, if you haven't read the first one, you maybe need to read the first one first. So let's see what it says. The highly anticipated sequel to Sosuke's The Cat Who Saved Books, an uplifting tale from Japan about a talking cat. Now, do I want to read about a talking cat? That sounds a little bit strange. I have read a book about a talking cat before who helped solve a murder, and I did really enjoy it. So because I've read that, it makes me possibly want to read this one. An uplifting tale from Japan about a talking cat, a book-loving girl, and the power of books to make a difference in the world. Sounds interesting. Naomi sees nothing wrong with a library and cat combination, but a talking cat is a whole other story. Definitely is. 13-year-old Nanami Kosaki loves reading. The local library is a home from home and books have become her best friends. When Nanami notices books disappearing from the library shelves, she's particularly curious about a suspicious man in a grey suit whose furtive behaviour doesn't feel right. Should she follow him to see what he's up to? Now that makes me think, is this a book for children or for teenage readers? I'm not sure. When a talking tabby cat called Tiger appears to warn her about how dangerous that would be, together they're brave enough to follow the frightening trail to find out where all the books have gone. Will Nanami and Tiger overcome the challenges of the adventure ahead? It says warm and wonderful and wise. It's also a powerful lesson never to underestimate the value of great literature and a reminder always to think for ourselves no matter what our charismatic leaders might say. Now that does sound interesting. I'm still not sure if this is a book for younger readers, but it would prompt me to go and actually look at the first book, so The Cat Who Saved Books, and see if that is something that I need to read before I would read this one. So that would be a possibility. Would you read a book about a talking cat? Let me know. So the next book, Murder in the Dressing Room. This book just jumped off the shelf to us because of the picture. It is very bold. The magnified eye, the colour of the book, the pink, the font of the title, Murder in the Dressing Room, just really jumped out at us. Again, I've not heard of the book and I've not heard of the author. So reading the synopsis, Lipstick Lies and Lethal Secrets, a dazzling new crime thriller for fans of Janice Hallett and Tom Hindle. I love Janice Hallett, so I could be onto a winner here. What Miss Marple did with tweeds and knitting, Misty Devine does with rhinestones and stilettos. Meet Misty Devine, your favourite new amateur sleuth. Drag isn't just dramatic, it's deadly. So it's about a drag queen who I'm assuming is who's going to solve the crime. I love RuPaul's Drag Race, so this sounds like it could be a winner for me. Drag isn't just dramatic, it's deadly. By day, shy hotel accountant Joe hides behind their desk and plays by the rules. By night, Joe takes to the stage as Misty Devine, an upcoming star of the London drag scene. But when Misty's mentor, Lady, is found dead in her dressing room, Misty finds herself in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Because Lady was murdered, and as the only ones with access to her room, Misty and her fellow performers quickly become prime suspects. This sounds like a real bit of fun and something that would maybe be a book to take on holiday to read. Heartbroken by the loss and frustrated by the inaction of the police, Jo is determined to uncover the killer in their midst. But what can they, a mere hotel accountant, possibly do? This is a case for Misty Devine. It says it's smart and sassy, a sequence-studded murder mystery with blood on the runway. Detective fiction has never been so glam. So yeah, that is definitely a book. If I was going on holiday, that is a book that I would want to take with us. So yeah, that will also go on my list. The sixth book is The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. Again, apologies if I've not said the name right. What jumped out to me with this book is the colours again. I think colours on books to me just draw my eye. If it's just a bland colour, kind of black and white with the title and not much else going on, I kind of just pass over it. But this one, I really like the colours. I like the way the title's set out. I like the images on it. It's got a kettle on there. It's got what looks like a fortune teller's caravan. So yes, that did draw me in. So what does it say? An immigrant fortune teller joins forces with an ex-mercenary and a reformed thief in search of a missing child in this sweet and big-hearted fantasy debut. I have read a few fantasy novels. They're not huge on my list, but I would read further with the blurb, because sometimes you'll pick up the book, you'll start the blurb, you read the first couple of lines and think, no, that's not for me. So let's read on. Small fortunes, big feelings. A cosy fantasy about trying to find yourself and finding a family instead. Perfect for fans of legends and lattes, a psalm for the wild built and the house in the cerulean sea. Never heard of any of them. Fleeing a troubled past, immigrant fortune teller Theo roams the dusty countryside with only her mule for company, telling small fortunes for small prices. Big fortunes come with big consequences, which she knows from bitter experience. That's got me thinking, what is this actually going to be about? It's a lonely life until she encounters an ex-mercenary and a semi-reformed thief who recruit her into their desperate search for a lost child. Soon they're joined by a baker with a need, spelled K-N-E-A-D, for adventure, and of course a slightly magical cat. You've got me there, it's got a cat in it. Theo sets down a new path with companions as big-hearted as her fortunes are small. But as her friends break down her walls, the shadows of her past close in. Now Theo must decide whether to risk everything to save the family she never thought she could have. Now this does sound very interesting. Like I say, I have read some fantasy. I haven't found a fantasy book that I've thought, wow, this was really good. But this, having read that blurb, seen the cover, that is something that I would like to read. So that would definitely go on my list of books to read, and I would want to read that pretty quickly, I think. That does sound good to me. And the last one that jumped off the shelf to me is this one, Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. Now, I have heard of Emily Wilde's compendiums before, vaguely, in some other YouTubers' videos. So that kind of drew me. I'd heard the name Emily Wilde. I didn't know whether it was the author or whether it was the character in the book, but it would appear this is the character in the book. Compendium of Lost Tales, again, that says it's about books. I love a book about books, so that was good. And I love the colours and the flowers on there. That is a beautiful, beautiful picture. So yeah, that really drew us in. This was on the bottom shelf actually, so it wasn't at eye height, so I actually looked down and that did pop off the shelf. So it says the curmudgeonly dryadologist, there's some big words, takes a leap further than ever before and sets herself up as a fully fledged fairy queen in the third utterly enchanting instalment of Fawcett's Light Academia series. There's a lot of words to get tongue-tied over in there. Now, as it says, the third instalment, again, I'm thinking, do I need to read the first two? Let me know in the comments below. Another book to go in the section that needs to be entitled sequels. It sounds like it's a fantasy. There's a fairy queen in there. So, as I said, I'm not averse to fantasy. The third instalment in the Enchanting Light Academia, Emily Wilde's books about a curmudgeonly scholar of folklore and the fair prince she loves, from Sunday Times best-selling author Heather Fawcett. Emily Wilde has spent her life studying fairies. A renowned dryadologist, I've not heard that word before, she has documented hundreds of species of folk in her An Encyclopedia of Fairies. I'm guessing that's a previous book. Now she's about to embark on her most dangerous academic project yet, studying the inner workings of a fairy realm as its queen. Does that grab us? I'm not really sure. Along with her former academic rival, now fiancé, the dashing and mercurial Wendell Bumblebee. This book sounds like I'm going to have to read it with a dictionary beside us. Emily is immediately thrust into the deadly intrigues of fairy as the two of them seize the throne of Wendell's long-lost kingdom, which Emily finds a beautiful nightmare filled with scholarly treasures. Emily has been obsessed with fairy stories for her entire life, but at first she feels as ill-suited to fairy as she did to the mortal world. How could an unassuming scholar like herself pass for a queen? Yet there is little time to settle in. Wendell's murderous stepmother has placed a deadly curse upon the land before vanishing without a trace. It will take all of Wendell's magic and Emily's knowledge of stories to unravel the mystery before they lose everything they hold dear. That doesn't really grab us, if I'm honest. I would have to go and look at the first book in the series and see what that was about, and probably read that one, I'm thinking, before I would read the next two. It kind of feels a little bit outside my fantasy comfort zone, so that would be on a not sure list for me, most definitely. So those are the 7 books that jumped off the shelves in Waterstones. Yeah, it's definitely the colours that draw me to a book, having looked at all those. They're very colourful, and the kind of images that they put on the book as well. So if it's a book that's just got not a lot of image and just text, I don't think I'm going to be drawn to it unless somebody has obviously recommended the book to us. So let me know in the comments below, like I said, which one of those you would have picked off the shelf, and if reading the blurb you would have then wanted to go on to read it. Or if you've noticed a book in a bookshop before that's really jumped off the shelf to you, let me know what it is again in the comments below. I'll be back on Wednesday at 2 p.m. with a live stream YouTube video where we're going to be discussing Wayward by Amelia Hart. So if you've read that book, feel free to come along and, have your say in the comments. And even if you haven't read it, come along, but there will definitely be spoilers in that video. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.